As it relates to this DL Hughley Monique saga, are you like me and you're wondering why all other comedians want to turn up these days? But then again, who am I to judge? All I know is this tasty little morsel of gossip that I want to talk to you about today is a great mix of two of my favorite subjects, contracts and tea. Hi there, I'm Professor Blackmore and welcome back to my channel. Now, if you've been following this thing between DL Hughley and Monique on social media, you'll know that this thing has more receipts than a Kmart layaway. But anyway, and who thought that we'd have a contract dispute between two comedians? And on this note, we really should be thanking God for at least two reasons. Number one, we should be thanking God that they even had contracts. Dave Chappelle. Excuse me. And number two, we should be thanking God that Monique didn't beat DL's ass right there on stage. Will Smith. Oh, did I say that out loud? But anyway. And so yes, today I'm going to break down this red hot social media contract dispute between DL and Monique. And I'll say right off the bat, I see two glaring issues here. Number one, this dispute is all wrapped up in the definition of the word headliner. And number two, these two co-headliners, if that is even possible, are fighting against the wrong people, if the meaning of the word means anything to both of them. Now, in my two books entitled Contract Writing for Dummies and entitled How to Get Away with Contracts, episode number 1, I talk about 5 business issues of concern that I teach to my law students in my contracts drafting class. And they are money, risk, control, standards, and in-game issues. And if you'd like to purchase a copy of either or both of my books entitled Contract Writing for Dummies or my book entitled How to Get Away with Contracts, episode 1, please pick up a copy on Amazon using the direct link posted down below in the description section of this video. But I teach students how to make sure they don't end up with their names on Instagram when their clients start posting the details of their legal issues on social media. And this has a stronger likelihood of happening when you use boilerplate contracts that do not fully analyze these 5 business issues. So let me drop the tea before I get into the legal problems. So this all started when DL and Monique were scheduled to do a show in Detroit in May. Now, everybody has been commenting on social media about whether they're on the DL team or Team Monique. But I'll let you decide. And if you want to know what I think, you'll have to stick around until the end. But in the meantime, here's a copy of the show schedule that was allegedly posted, which reflects that Monique was supposed to take the stage last after DL. Well, on the night of the show, however, apparently DL must have discovered this when he arrived at the venue, because during the show, Monique took the stage and told the crowd that she was supposed to be the headliner of the show, and she claimed, allegedly, that DL refused to take the stage if he wasn't in the last slot. Now, it is alleged that Monique stated that the only reason that she signed on for the show was explicitly because she was scheduled to be the headliner. Allegedly, during her clapback session directed at DL, she also mentioned Steve Harvey. And here is what she said.
What nigga about me. I ain't for that Hollywood bullshit. If you cross the motherfucking line, Oprah, if you cross the motherfucking line, Tyler, I'm gonna see you cool motherfuckers. Come on the cool train, nigga. Choo-choo! That niggas told me, Monique, let go and let God. Let go and let God. They have taught niggas to be so motherfucking fearful and just give it to God. Let go and let God. So I kept hearing this shit over and over and over again. So I said, well, let me let this shit go and let me give it to God. And you know what God did? He gave it right the fuck back. He said, bitch, I gave you everything you need to deal with these motherfucking coons. Steve Harvey, Hughley. I gave you everything you need to deal with these motherfucking coons. I don't fuck with nobody. See, tonight, I'm gonna tell y'all what the fuck is going on, because y'all know one thing about me, bitch, I'm gonna tell. That's why they ain't like me as a little girl, bitch, because I'm a tell. Bitch, I'm a tell. You out there kissing Petey on the playground, bitch. You nasty whore, we in the 3rd grade, bitch. I'm going to tell. Yes, he pumped me, bitch, but nobody saw it. Oh, I'm a tell. See, I fucks with contracts. That's why niggas got a problem with me. If you sign the motherfucking contract, that's what the fuck it is. But they're so used to niggas fucking around with the contract and being nervous because they might lose an opportunity or a motherfucking chance. So they will redo the contract. I'm not a bitch who's gonna redo the contract. If you sign the motherfucker, that's what the motherfucker is. So tonight, see, I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna break it down for you, Detroit, because I would feel less than a motherfucking woman if I didn't let y'all know what the fuck was going on this stage right now. So if my energy is a little different, nigga, because they got me fucked up. They got me fucked up. They got me fucked up. So the contract, oh, nigga. The motherfucking contract said that a bitch is the headliner. The headliner. Let me say it again, the headliner. That's what the motherfucking contract says. Monique is to be the last motherfucking person on the goddamn stage. She is the headliner. That's what I signed the fuck up for. I'm 30 plus years in this motherfucking business and I don't open for no goddamn body. The contract said the headliner. The contract said the headliner. The contract said the headliner. But a nigga named Hughley turned into a bitch and said I won't perform if she does that. I won't go out if she does that. Nigga, you open for the kings of comedy. I close for the queens of comedy, nigga.
Now, if you want to find out what Steve Harvey had to say about this, you'll have to stick around until the end. But this is where this Instagram beatdown between DL and Monique began, with Hughley mentioning the order of the performers listed on the event's tickets and claiming that he agreed to take a chance on working with Monique against his better judgment and the advice of his team. And so, of course, Monique responds back on Instagram by stating, and I quote in all caps, "The fact that you point the people to the ticket stubs for the order of the names versus to your contract implies that you don't have a contract that shows that you are the headliner, like I do." So now I'll get to the receipts, paperwork, a little bit later. But I want to stop right here and break some of this down. So I go back to my 5 business issues that I teach students to analyze. And I also call these 5 business problems because that is what an issue is. It's a problem. So again, they are money, risk, control, standards, and in-game issues or problems. And I can see right off the bat that this problem surrounds a failure to fully analyze a standards issue, which you'll usually find initially in the definition section of the contract. Now, not only do I teach students how to analyze these 5 business issues or problems, but I also teach them how to solve these problems with one or more of 7 what I call contract concepts. And I also call these 7 problem solvers. And then finally, I teach students how to organize these 7 problem solvers or contract concepts in one or more of 10 contract sections that I believe should be present in all successful contracts. And I talk about all of this in my 2 books. So you should see this term, headliner, defined initially in the definition section of the contract. But what you need to understand is that the definition section of the contract does not have any binding terms of the contract in it. And so to make the definition of the word headliner have a binding legal effect, it would need to be executed using one of the other 7 contract concepts known as a covenant, also known as an obligation. And so a covenant or obligation is a promise to perform in the future. And it creates a right, which is another one of the 7 contract concepts. And so it creates a right in the other person to receive that performance. So this brings me to another glaring problem that I see right here with this situation. And that is, it seems that DL had his contract and presumably Monique had her contract, but neither one was a promisor or promisee in either of the 2 contracts. And so presumably also neither was either one of them a signator on either of the respective contracts. So while it's possible that you have the word headliner possibly being defined in one or more of these contracts, you'll never solve this business issue or problem if there is not a covenant contract concept, also called an obligation, in both of their contracts, whereby one of them promises that the other would be the headliner, which would then vest in the other person the right to receive that performance, the identification of being the party as defined in the contract as the headliner. So I'm not going to get into discussing who they should be fighting with right now, but it should not be each other. So now we can take a look at the receipts. Paperwork that each party posted on social media. So now I'll take a look at this deal memo that DL initially posted, but I want to say right at the start that a deal memo is not a contract. Now, I talk to students all the time about having a deal memo because it helps you to organize all of the things that need to be reflected in the contract. And so a deal memo is what we use to draft the final contract. And so in the deal memo, we see a notation that states billing 100% headline. And in the additional provisions, we also see a notation that states, and I quote, artists to have approval of lineup and running order of show. Lineup, DL Hughley. Closing, Monique, Aida Rodriguez, local radio station host, end quote. But again, let me say, a deal memo is not a contract, and even if all they had was a deal memo, it would need to be a deal memo that also included Monique for it to have any binding effect on defining who the artist is and who the headliner is for the show. Now, let's take a look at the contract that Monique posted on Instagram in response to DL posting his deal memo. And as you can see here, in what I call in my contract procedure, the introduction section of the contract, here in the preamble, you have the listing of the parties' names, which should match the signatures and the signatories of the contract. And as you can see, DL Hughley is not mentioned anywhere in this contract. Now, in analyzing the 5 business issues, I teach students how to use my business issues worksheet so that they can break down and analyze all of the issues that would be important to each party, i.e., that person's deal breakers. And as you can see here, after finishing my business issues worksheet on this particular term of the contract, it would have been clear right then and there to both DL and Monique that they would need the other to sign on to their respective contracts in order to have a binding promise from the one that the other would be the headliner. Now, I also teach students how the contract should have what I call a subject matter performance provision in section 3 of my contract procedure in my contract setup called the business action section of the contract that specifically states the main performance covenant or obligations of the parties in the contract. Now, Monique's contract has this provision right here in provision number 1. And as you can see, Monique's contract states, and I quote, "Talent shall be the headliner of the show and the closing talent for the show, of which talent shall not perform later than 1 hour of performance time after the star of the show." Well, there are a lot of terms in there that definitely need to all be defined in the definition section of the contract for anybody to know who is, i.e., the talent, who is the closing talent, who is the headliner, who is the star of the show. It's all very interesting. And although we don't see a definition section here defining the meaning of the word headliner or any of these other terms, I'm sure that maybe these terms were defined somewhere in Monique's contract. But that wouldn't even solve the problem if both DL and Monique both knew they would be performing in the same show, and this seems to be, i.e., the word headliner or being the headliner, seemed to be a deal breaker term for both of them. So now, this might be a standard contract in the industry that is being used by Monique, but you can't solve a business problem using standard industry boilerplate contract terms. Now, I should note that to date, DL has not posted his alleged contract, but he did post a video of the contract that Monique already posted, in which he states the following in his Instagram post, and I quote in all caps, "Man, Hicks Media Inc.? Hold up, that's you. You really showing everyone a contract you submitted from your own company?" Laugh emoji, laugh emoji, laugh emoji. I smell bullshit, and I wouldn't pick it up with the old ass birth certificate paper it was written on. Stop. Again, my contract, of which he has not shown yet, but I go on, and he begins to bulletproof some points that are in his alleged contract, which he's calling his deal memo a contract, which is not. It says headliner, highest paid artist on the show, artist to have approval of lineup of the show, DL Hughley, closing. Now, explain to me how my shit was delivered on and yours wasn't. Sounds to me like your problem is with Hicks Media. Can we please implement the 3 knockdown rule? End quote. And so in response to whatever this is that DL posted, I want to say this. With all due respect, DL, no, we cannot implement anything, boo. Nothing was delivered on because as far as we can all see, you don't have a contract. The most that you have is an oral agreement with one of these producers. First of all, yes, Hicks Media is listed in the preamble of Monique's contract as a party, but so is the alleged event production company or producer. The only problem is that they don't match. The producer or purchaser listed in DL's deal memo is 5 times Production Inc. But on the other hand, the producer or purchaser listed in Monique's contract is New Day Entertainment. Now, how is this possible if there was only to be one headline? While it seems that each comedian was the headliner, they were headliners for, it seems, presumably, 2 different purchasers or producers. And so again, this huge business issue or problem, i.e. being the headliner, would have been resolved with one contract listing all of the producers and all talent all on one contract. And it seems that the terms of DL's agreement were never executed in a contract. If he's posting everything else on Instagram, if he had a contract, it seems to me he would have posted his contract there as well. So, if you ask me, I would have to say that Monique is the winner of this social media dust-up because she at least has a contract. But I would be remiss if I didn't share what Steve Harvey had to say about what Monique said in her clapback during the show about him.
You know what God did? He gave it right the back. He said, I gave you everything you need to deal with these coons. Steve Harvey, D.L. Hughley. I gave you everything you need to deal with these coons. I don't with nobody. See, tonight.
What? Excuse me, Monique?
Let me just open by saying I could care less than about what you think about me. Because clearly, I'm not your problem. You know what? And anyone who knows me, who really knows me, can't even make that statement. Now you trying to sound profound now, but really, girl.
And so again, in my opinion, instead of wasting so much time fighting each other, to start, DL and Monique should consolidate their energy against the producers of this ghetto fabulous event. But if you ask me, Monique is the winner. A deal memo is not a contract. A ticket stub is not a contract as it relates to the artist. Now that ticket stub is a contract with the people who would be in the audience, but it does not in any way bind the artist to any agreements about who the headliner would be for the show. Now this is how you know you have a contract. You'll see one of these words at the top: contract or agreement. And so since Monique at least had a contract, I have to give her the win. But what about you? Who do you think has the strongest position in this social media dust-up? DL or Monique? Please drop me a line in the comments section below. And I want to also ask that you give me a huge thumbs up. And if you'd like to purchase a copy of either or both of my books entitled Contract Writing for Dummies or entitled How to Get Away with Contracts, episode number 1, please use the Amazon link posted down in the description section below. And I want to also ask that you please follow me on TikTok and Instagram.